Quiet on set. Picture is up. All right, roll sound.
Rolling.
Roll cameras.
Cams rolling.
And 3, 2.
Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Hank's Think Tank. We're back again. We've got kind of shows back to back, so it's been good. We are continuing on the Montgomery County Water War saga. And I've got these guys in here today. They were just back from Austin testifying in front of the Senate committee. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Because I wanted to mention something really important here. What this whole scenario envelops is your money. It's not somebody else's money, it's your money. And these guys are here to try to protect what's going on with your money. So this is worth watching, worth listening to, and more importantly, worth sharing with your community members. We need to get the word out. We need to let everybody know what's going on with this water thing in Montgomery County that needs to be resolved. So who I've got with me today, I've got Jim Spigener, I've got Webb Melder, and I've got Hardman. These guys are all well educated. They know what's going on with this thing. They've been dealing with it. They're in the middle of litigation. And I'm going to pass it off right now to Jim, and he'd like to make some opening remarks. But welcome, gentlemen. It's good to have you aboard, and I'm glad you guys are fighting for us and continuing to move forward with this thing. Jim?
Great. Thanks, Hank. Well, I appreciate you complimenting us that we're fighting for it, but
Okay.
there's some other people that are really carrying the mail for us, and that's our legislative contingent, and that's Brandon Creighton, Will Metcalf, Cecil Bell, Lois Colkhorst, Steve Toth. All of these guys have really stepped up to help with this situation around the water war here in Montgomery County. They realize that this thing has gone off the rails. They realize it was done illegally, and they're doing everything in their power to help us. So I want to recognize our legislative contingent for really supporting all of us, everybody in the county, and especially the agencies, you know, the Lone Star Water Board and the City of Conroe and the City of Magnolia and all the private water companies. They've really stepped up to help us get this thing retracked. So
Okay.
I just wanted to take a second to do that.
And I'm glad you did, because it's important that we do understand and recognize we've got good people out there working for us.
Yes, we do.
And I'm glad that they're active, and I'm glad that they understand the situation.
They do.
So you guys were recently in Austin, and you were testifying before the Senate Committee on Water, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs. So how'd that testimony go? How did this whole thing transpire? What happened here?
I'm going to let Webbo
Webb, let's
talk
talk
to that.
about it.
Thank you, Hank. Appreciate you having us. The meeting started out, we weren't quite sure what direction it might wind up. There were some communications back and forth between Chairman Perry and Senator Colkhorst. And again, thank Senator Colkhorst for stepping up for the residents of Montgomery County. And the turned and made a little better direction, we felt like. And then we all had our testimonies. It was Jim and Simon Cicada, myself, and Councilman Hardman. And we got our testimonies in, and to Chairman Perry's credit and the City Senate Committee, we engaged in some Q&A, and it went well. We actually were there for about 34 minutes. And which is unusual. And
Yeah, that's pretty good.
when we got up and all of the testimony was over with, a couple of the senators asked us, to come forth. They wanted to talk to us. So it turned into more of a one-on-one kind of deal. And we left there feeling good about our efforts, our combined efforts, and feel like it was helpful. We were there. As Jim says, we were there to support our legislative body who's trying to get their arms around this thing.
Okay.
And so,
Okay.
yeah.
Mr. Hardman, why don't you explain to us a little bit about exactly what was going on there? I know that it had something to do with the Sunset Bill, so maybe you could explain what a Sunset Bill is.
Sure. Hank, it's a real pleasure to be here. I've been
Okay.
looking at your show for a while now, so it's a pleasure. To take a big step back. So in the state of Texas, the Sunset bill or the sunset process has gone on so that every state agency goes through a review process,
Okay.
the sunset process, every dozen years. So from the biggest agencies all the way through, they go through a review to see, are you doing well? Are you not? What things are you doing well? What things need to be improved on? And if you're not being a viable entity, we should sunset you. We'll do away with you, consolidate you, that type of thing. So it is a review process that all state agencies in Texas go through. Well, up until recently, river authorities did not fall within that process. They're kind of a nebulous political subdivision, not really accountable to anyone. And so it wasn't until Senator Birdwell and Senator Creighton really imposed their will on the legislature to make river authorities fall under the sunset process.
Okay. And how long ago did that happen?
That happened, what, Jim, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Okay.
Yes.
So,
A couple of sessions
so
ago.
the river authorities have already had their first sunset review, right?
Yes.
Right, and
Well,
there's
they're going through it now.
Yeah,
They're
because
going
there's,
to- okay.
there's 24 river authorities in the
Yes.
state of Texas, so they can't do them all at once. So they're
Wow,
cycling through
okay.
a couple at a time, right? So,
Okay.
and that's an every 2-year process. So they only do it, on the off years.
When they're in session.
Right, when in session.
Okay.
So, and actually, SJRA was done last session, but since COVID happened and there was ongoing litigation with the city of Conroe and others, a lot of the issues that were at hand, the Sunset Commission did not address, and so the legislature held it over to this session,
Okay.
and that's why it was still here, and that's why this issue still was up, up for consideration.
Okay.
And so, to put a little context on how we ended up connected to this sunset bill, as a result of trying to settle this bond issue. So, the bond issue is the big gorilla, right? So, the state of Texas doesn't want those bonds to default.
Correct. Well,
Texas
nobody
Water-
wants the bonds
Nobody
to
does.
default.
Texas
Right.
Water Development Board's real concerned about it. And so there was a meeting held where all of our legislative contingent, basically, the SJRA and the Texas Water Development Board, as well as all the litigants, were called to Austin and put in a room and basically told to solve this. And as a result of that, the SJRA sent a proposal, a settlement proposal, that was no different than the proposal that was put on the table before that meeting.
Okay.
Meaning, no flexibility. So Will
Yeah.
Metcalf
Make your payments and
and
follow
shut
your
up,
GRP
and
that's,
shut
yeah,
up. And that's right.
I
So
got you.
Will Metcalf decided at that point, with the help of Cecil Bell and Steve Toth,
Okay.
to
Good
craft,
guys.
you bet,
Yeah.
craft an amendment and stick it on to that sunset bill, which required the SJRA to remove the general manager and reappoint a new one, and it couldn't be the old one that they reappointed.
Okay.
So, trying to remove the obstacle, because I don't believe there's anybody on the litigant side of this lawsuit, meaning the private water companies, City of Conroe, City of Magnolia. There are none of those people who believe that we were going to make any progress with the existing regime.
Okay.
So Will Metcalf.
So they're just dug in and fortified. They've
Exactly.
dug in.
It's
They've
what
fortified
it's what
their
it feels
position.
like. Okay,
Right.
it's hard to know what they think, but so Representative Metcalf attached a bill to do that.
Okay.
That bill, and he did that on the House floor. He did not do that in committee. Otherwise, it would have never left
Right.
committee. And that bill passed by a margin of 145 to 2,
Okay.
meaning all these legislators, representatives, said this is a local issue. Will Metcalf knows best. We're going to support that.
Okay.
And then it came over to the Senate, into the committee, Perry's committee. Senator Perry feels very strongly, I'm not saying he's right or wrong here. I mean, he feels very strongly that he doesn't want these bills, these bonds to forfeit. So they made a substitute bill, removed that amendment.
Okay.
And we were there testifying to ask them to not remove that amendment. We were voting against the sub
Okay.
and for them to leave it. That's what we were basically there for.
Okay.
Hank, I'll tell you a couple of things. So I was at that meeting in Austin because I represent the city of Conroe. I'm a councilman. And so Senator Perry was there. Will Metcalf was there.
Yep.
Tracy King, who is the Representative Tracy King from Uvalde, who's the person on the House side of the Natural Resources Group. And they made it very clear to us, number one, that their biggest issue was the bonds and the fact that the state of Texas, and they really didn't, it wasn't their issue who was right or wrong, who was legal or who wasn't. So their biggest issue is let's get the bonds paid.
And just to clarify, it's $500 million worth of bonds.
A little bit less than that. That's what they originally
been
took out.
490.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Whatever.
Okay.
And so, and for us to work in good faith to try to negotiate that. And they said basically, if it wasn't settled in the next 2 years before the next session, that they would settle it for us legislatively, and nobody would be happy. And so we got the message. My city administrator was there with me. I got the message. We're all good Texans, as we alluded to. Nobody wants to see these bonds fail.
Right.
And then to Jim's point, almost immediately after that meeting, the letter went out from SJRA, and it was essentially absolutely the same talking points that we've gone through the last couple of years. So that's what caused the amendment that Will Metcalf put forward was not, and just, I'm sorry.
Personal.
Well, yeah, it wasn't personal, and this was a legislative leap, if you will, to add that, but there was really no other way or no other place to make this happen, because part of the challenge, one of the many challenges of a river authority is they have no statutory oversight. There's no place for anybody to go to. Mayor Melder said it really eloquently in the Senate. If you're a voter and you have an issue, where do you go?
Right. And
What
a
do
lot
you
of
do?
political subdivisions are set up that way.
Exactly.
They just don't have
And
any umbrella.
river
that-
authorities are even worse because they don't even have a state budget. They generate their own money. So the legislature, they don't even go through the finance committee or anything.
Wow.
So they truly are an
Nice.
island. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's got to be nice.
it is.
You know.
And
It
so,
is.
and so, right now the governor appoints all the board of directors. And one of the things that they had, one of the recommendations that was on the original bill was to move, and their terms were for 6 years. The original
That's an extensive term.
that was.
Yeah.
So one of the original recommendations was to move that to 4.
Okay.
And then as a result of our conversation in Austin, they thought that maybe changing those to a 1-year renewable term with senatorial oversight would be the way to do this.
Right. Yeah, and Course brought that up.
She
right?
did.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
it
Good
was
idea.
senatorial approval.
Yes.
So whoever the governor
Right.
appoints has to be okayed by the Senate. They have to go through a
And it should be.
process.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It gives us
absolutely.
that gives the citizens at least a way through their legislators to have people that aren't doing their jobs or are doing things they shouldn't be doing pulled off those boards.
And see, that's thinking outside the box too.
Yeah,
It's just
it
a good
was.
idea.
It was.
You
So
know.
it doesn't give us a voice that we need, but it gives us a voice that we don't have, right?
Right.
And so that's it's a good step in the right
Yeah,
direction.
the best of all worlds would be if it was an elected board. That would be the best of all worlds.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
this is I think, a very good compromise to that. At least place to start anyway.
Okay. So, what would happen if the general manager at SJRA were out of the picture? I mean, how do you think that would change things to be able to move this problem forward and still be able to pay for the bonds, but get rid of the GRP and set things right with the citizens of Montgomery?
I don't want to overpromise anything by saying
Right. I'm just
moving-
asking what you think.
Yeah. So
what
my
you
thought
think would
is that
happen.
gives us an opening to begin discussions for how those kinds of things that you just listed, like what do we do with the GRP contracts? What do we do with the bonds? How do we do that? Now we have an opening to have an open,
So fresh
productive
eyes.
discussion.
Yeah. So
yes.
what you're looking for is fresh eyes and somebody who hasn't fortified their position.
and doesn't have anything to lose by solving this
Right.
another way. And I think that the River Authority under the existing general manager, they don't see another way out for them. They're
Yeah.
going to push. They're going to push this through. There's a lot of other stuff going on, like the antitrust suit and all that.
Right.
But I think having a new general manager in there who gets brought in with the objective of solving this is going to have a different outlook than the person who's there. And so it's not. It seems like a great big step, and it probably is in one way, but in another way, it's a very small step. The deep tissue work starts
After
after that.
Right.
That's the hard work,
Yeah.
the heavy
I
lifting,
can see that.
because there's not an easy solution to this.
Right. And I do want to clarify something just for our viewers. In conversations that we had before we started rolling the cameras, these guys have made it clear to me they have nothing against SJRA. SJRA is not really the problem. The problem exists with GRP contracts and with the management of SJRA, not SJRA itself. So I believe that the SJRA is still a viable organization, and they do a lot of good work in Montgomery County for the citizens of Montgomery
Yes.
County. But this issue does exist, and we
Yes.
do need to fix it because it
Absolutely.
even affects me. I mean, I pay that SJRA fee, and we don't get any water for it.
Yep.
And we don't get a drop of water. We get nothing.
We need
So-
in order to solve this, we need a group of people who are dedicated, I think, to three principles. One principle is private property rights. That's
Absolutely.
sacred in the state of Texas.
Yep, absolutely.
The second thing that I think they need to be dedicated to is the best thing to solve the best thing for the citizens of Montgomery County as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So not thinking about any special group or any, and then
Right.
Because that right now, if you look at it, the GRP only is being paid by large volume groundwater users.
That's right.
That's a very small audience compared
Mm-hmm.
to the county. So it's a hell of a burden for those people. So those two things are critically important. And then the last thing that I think is really important for us as citizens or as a guiding principle for this is fiscal responsibility here,
Mm-hmm.
and that we need Montgomery County to have a reliable source of water. Period. And I don't know we could import water. There's a lot of different ways for Montgomery County to get water. We're surrounded by some counties that are very rural,
Right.
and they have little population, huge groundwater reserves.
But we sit on a sea of water ourselves.
We do, but you gotta know something else. There's also another drumbeat, and that's subsidence. So how much of that water can we actually take out of that sea? So we're
Well,
fighting.
that's where the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District
That's exactly
comes in
right.
to get us at science.
We are. We're
Yeah.
trying to. We're trying our best to. But we're fighting this subsidence war right now, which, if you tie subsidence to flooding, it's a false war.
Mhm.
Period.
I agree with that.
And if you tie flooding as the problem for the county, then you can solve it, because it's about drainage. It's about getting water from point A to point B quicker.
Right.
And the SJRA has been one responsible for doing that. They've done a pretty poor job of it up till now. But my point is, at some point, no matter what, we're going to have to, if this county continues to grow the way it does, we're going to need conjunctive water use. Anybody who
yeah.
thinks we don't is crazy. But so we don't want the water plant to go away, and we don't want the bonds to forfeit, but we just can't have it being done the way it's being done. It was forced on people. It was forced on a small group of people. So we need these resources. And so the three principles for me is private property rights, being fiscally responsible, money-wise and water-wise for this county, and then doing the best thing for all of the citizens of MoCo.
Okay.
Because you got people out there had never had a drop of water and don't ever hope to get one. And on their water bills, they're paying.
So what you're hoping for is that there'll be an exit by the general manager of SJRA in one way, shape, or form. And at that point, someone new will come in.
Yes.
We'll have fresh eyes on the situation.
And we can open
and
it.
be able to go back to the negotiating table.
Yes.
Take everything that's been done and just kind of start over.
Exactly. Get out a clean sheet of paper and say, what are the possible solutions for this? And we've got smart people here in this
Oh,
county.
yeah.
This
And we
problem-
can do this outside of legislation as well.
we can solve
So
this.
that'd be
I'm
great.
convinced we can do it. I don't know. I'm not smart enough myself to know all the answers, but I can tell you we can put together a blue ribbon panel of people and
I
solve
think we
this
could.
problem.
I think we could.
Yep.
I think we could. Webb Melder, is there anything you'd like to add?
I'm just enjoying the conversation.
Are you?
It's hard with the current general manager there. There's no interest in even trying to negotiate because there's no trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I speak for almost everybody involved in this, Hank. When you lose trust, it's over with.
Sure.
So getting a fresh start at least gives us the opportunity to get out a clean sheet of paper and to start fresh. And to try to work with whoever that person may be, until they give us reason to doubt them. So, yeah.
So what do you think would happen with the lawsuits that are pending also? I mean, would those kind of come to an end, I guess?
No, I don't think so. Look, I think there's still. We need to make it clear that you can't do this kind of stuff. That you can't come in and saddle the taxpayers with $500 million in bonds for a water system, and then in order to make that successful, cut off all means of competition. Because that's why we have huge water bills. Look,
Right.
If there wasn't any competition in the oil and gas world, we'd be paying $25 a gallon for gasoline.
Yeah.
And so competition makes people better and makes things cheaper. Everybody has to be on their best game. And what has happened here with water is that got taken out with the GRP contracts.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I read the GRP. It's there's some pretty eye-opening statements.
onerous.
It's
Yeah,
wow, they really pulled this
Yeah,
off.
and
I was surprised.
They did. I am too. And let me I want to say something here. Webb Melder, had Webb Melder not been the mayor of Conroe and been on top of this and been willing to stick his neck out for the last 15 years, this would have went right on through, and we'd be in phase 3 or phase 4, and our water bills would be astronomical compared to what they are now. So this man right here stepped up to the plate and single-handedly for years, I don't know how long, fought this thing himself. And now, and we've gradually grown a coalition of people. Simon Cicada's one, Mike Stecker, Tom Mart. There's a bunch of these private water owners.
Right.
The city of Conroe, the city of Magnolia, have all come together to fight this. And you can't have that many people saying this is wrong and there not be a rat in the...
Yeah, something's going on.
Yeah. So I don't know that it's going to kill the court cases, but the court cases are not necessarily going to don't have to kill the bonds. We can find a way to save the bonds. We just want we don't want a monopoly here.
Yeah, I understand that. That makes sense.
Yeah. I could be wrong about that. But.
So where are we on legislation right now? So you went and testified, but where are we with legislation?
I think it's so it did get voted out of committee.
Okay.
It's had the second reading, I think, in the Senate, and I don't believe it's had the third reading.
It has not.
Okay.
So we're waiting with bated breath to see. So the only thing that would have to happen is for the same thing to happen in the Senate that happened in the House, to where either Senator Creighton or Colkhorst or someone would have to make a similar amendment that Representative Metcalf did on the Senate floor.
I wonder if Colkhorst will add that as her idea.
Well, there's a lot. I think there's a lot of options. So one option is the general manager could step down and take himself out of this.
Okay.
Or could be asked to step down. All right. That removes the need for the amendment to be exactly the same. The best of all worlds would be that the general manager either steps down or is made to step down, and Colkhorst's amendment or Colkhorst's idea gets turned into an amendment where now the whole board has to go through, all river authorities have to go through review and on a one-year basis.
If they're self-funding and they don't have any oversight, be it financial or managerial,
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta
the
have
other thing
a
that
board
could
that's at least has some oversight.
Exactly. The other thing that could happen, and I'm not advocating any of this, but if I'm a board member in one of these river authorities, and I have to go through Senate review for my job, In other words, I've got to be confirmed, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You could lose a whole board. The Senate could go, this board's been asleep at the wheel.
Well, not only that, but anytime you enter a confirmation process by
Yep.
Senate or by legislative
Yep.
authority, you're going to get the best of the best only
All right.
that's going to be able to manage a river
Sitting
authority.
through that.
Yeah. And so you're going to get people that are open-minded, people who can examine
Mm-hmm.
complex situations, and not just any old person that's
It'll be an
a
active
friend of whoever to be appointed.
And that's what happens
You know,
now.
yeah.
So they're a lot of them are asleep at the wheel. They're not bad people. They just,
Right.
I get stuck on there. It's a plum assignment for me, and I get put on there because I've done some good work for whoever.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean that I'm attentive to the thing that's going on. And I think your point about we need people on there who are dedicated to doing a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant idea when
I did
Colcourse
too.
mentioned it.
I
I was
did
like,
too.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we saw
I
the
think
light
all-
bulb go on when she thought of it. It was
Yeah.
I think all three of us, the hair stood up on our arms when she gave. And then when Senator Johnson said, "Well, why isn't it an elected board?"
Yeah,
I thought, "Wow, the question of the day."
there you
Well,
go.
Yeah,
You know, all three of us were the first elected board members.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all three been president of the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District. All three
Okay.
of us have served as president.
Awesome.
And
Yeah,
so
that's good.
if you look at 180 degree, difference
Mm-hmm.
of transparency and accountability, you have
Yes.
to go no farther than the Lone Star District.
That's right.
Right, yeah, it's pretty obvious.
And
And I've
so-
poured over you guys' website and taken a look at everything, and yeah, it's outstanding.
And that's
I
what
think y'all are doing a
that's
great
what
job.
local government that's what it needs to be, right? Because we are held accountable,
Mhm.
and there is that accountability that's necessary at all levels.
Okay.
And so that's
And I would like the public to know that we are 100%, Harry said it, we heard Senator Perry.
Mhm.
We are 100% behind saving these bonds somehow or another. We're not 100% behind being run over
Right.
by anybody. I don't care who it is. In Montgomery County,
But if the bond payment was spread out over the entire county, it would make a big difference.
that might be one way to
You
do
know,
it. I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. Another way to do it is to sell water, wholesale some of this water.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of different ways to skin this cat. And look, I work with some of the smartest people in the world. These guys go get oil out of 6,000 feet below the ocean.
Right.
And we can't solve this $500 million. This is a flea
Yeah.
on an elephant.
Right.
If you look at the state's budget, the amount of money, just take the Texas Water Development Board and look at how much money they manage. $50 billion probably, and I don't know how much in bond issues. This is $500 million.
Right.
This is not a huge.
It's a manageable problem.
It is a manageable
Or it
problem.
should be a manageable
It
problem.
should be. And
You know?
and so
but you
this
can't get
person-
entrenched.
That's right.
And I think that's what happened.
That's what
Is
happened.
we have entities that have
Exactly.
become entrenched and they're
Exactly.
just stubborn and not moving.
Well, and then it gets to the point where it's a test of wills, and that's when you lose
Mm-hmm.
any ability. And Webb said it. That's when trust goes away. It's
Right.
when I realized that you're unwilling to even really have a conversation. Your mind's already made up,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to change it.
Right.
And
Well, you
then-
take that $500 million, then you add the cost of litigation on top of that,
Oh.
and the time and expense. I mean, it's raking part of this county over the coals.
Yeah, I looked at the and I don't think this is a good number, but I looked at the amount of money SJRA spent in litigation, and it's well over $6 million. That's a lot of money to pay a bunch of lawyers.
That's right.
to fight over something that's wrong. So and I know Lone Star paid about $2 million in litigation fees. I don't know how much the city of Conroe
At least
spent,
that.
the city of Magnolia spent. When you start to add it up, it's 10 or 15 million bucks. Gone, just vapor.
Right.
And
And
nobody
that's
got
money that
any
could be
good out of
used
it.
for scientific examination to find out where
Oh,
we are.
we could have put our extensometers in.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's money that could definitely be spent in a better place. Mr.
Yeah.
Melder, go ahead.
I think Jim and Harry and everybody's pretty kind about my role in this thing, but as the saying goes, I was there standing on the corner when this big bus came by and started running over everybody. Along the way, a lot of people have stepped up, and it's become a solid team effort. As far as the lawsuits and stuff go, they're going to play out. The evidence against SJRA and their illegal actions, what they did, who is responsible for that, it's overwhelming. It's obvious. Now, on the positive side of all this, you mentioned a county-wide solution. How do we take care of this?
Mm-hmm.
That can be done. I want to go on the record of saying if it involves the taxpayers' money in any form, required payment, tax, whatever,
Vote.
let them have a vote.
Amen.
Let them
I
vote
like
on
it.
it.
Yeah.
Let
We
them
should
vote
be able
on
to.
it. That should be the way it is.
Mhm.
I've been on record of saying this whole thing, and then I think their general manager at the River Authority may have even mentioned to Councilman Hardman. They went about this wrong,
Mhm.
and they finally got to a point where they could maybe admit that, if I've got my
No,
story
that's-
straight.
Mhm.
But the people of Montgomery County, as President Spigener said, we need to look not only current, but we need to look out into the future. Conjunctive use is something we understand.
Mhm.
It's a valuable asset. But go talk to the people of Montgomery County and explain it. Be transparent with it. Be honest with them. Tell them why whatever we're doing here, folks, it's not only for you, it's for your children and your grandchildren.
Absolutely.
And we can solve this together. Nobody's wearing pistols on their hips like SJRA did.
Mm-hmm.
And let's sit down and talk about this and get it resolved.
Yeah, I
Montgomery
agree.
County is full of reasonable people.
Absolutely.
And
We've
if
got
you-
good voters
If
here. We
you
got
will
smart
make
guys.
it, I believe, and I think Mayor Melder is absolutely right. I believe if we make the right case, people will see the benefit and be willing to carry their load.
Oh yeah,
so-
absolutely.
Yeah, we're all about that. That's what we're all about.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about endgame. Let's say general manager leaves, litigation starts to move towards settlement. What's our endgame? What are we looking at for the future?
Well, I think the bottom line is we need to find a viable alternative, right? Conjunctive use needs to be there. We need to look at a manageable relationship with SJRA that gets rates to where they are affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the bottom line is we need to have an agency that's much more transparent, right? Because they're opaque is like the word of the day from them, right?
Absolutely.
And so as long as we understand if they can bring their costs down that are in line with the industry, I think we can all enjoy a viable alternative in surface water. It's something that we need. It's something that we should take advantage of. We're blessed to have some of the most robust aquifers in the world here,
Mm-hmm.
right? But let's be good stewards of this. But as it sits today, unless and until the general manager leaves and we can establish a new rate of trust, a new day, and they run their business as a business, I don't think we're going to get there. Once they are there, I think we'll be able to come up with a viable operating mechanism to where it's gonna make sense for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other big thing is there are a lot of different parts of the county that would like to join in on it, right?
Right.
Under the current course and direction, it is just incomprehensibly expensive to do something like this. Again, if the voters vote on it,
Let them have a say.
let's let the voters have a say.
Yeah, I trust voters.
The way
in
it's set
Montgomery
up
County.
now, think about it. You've got a GRP committee.
Mm-hmm.
Their only objective is to find a way to collect that money from the existing people. It's not to figure out how to do conjunctive use. I think so. When you say what's the end game, The end game is to have conjunctive use at a reasonable price that the citizens of this county believe is good for them and good for the future. That's the end. That's the very end game. But I don't think we can get to the end game until we get a blue ribbon committee of people together to figure out what the options are and how to implement it. So, Webbo said something really important here, and Harry too, about the voters. Well, I can tell you now, if you don't think about marketing, if you come to me and you tell me you want another tax, you know what my default answer is?
It's absolutely no. Yeah.
If you come to me and you know how to make a case, and you can show me something that I can look at and say, that's good for my grandkids and my kids, and it's not going to overburden anybody. It's going to be fair. I'm all in. I'm all in.
And the voters in Montgomery County have proven to be wise.
That's right.
Over and over again.
But here's the deal. Where we fail is we don't put the marketing plan together.
That's right.
You've got to look. How hard is it? You know this. You're a media guy. How hard has it been for us to reach all the citizens of Montgomery County about this issue?
It's tough.
It's difficult. So,
and it's a multi-pronged, multifaceted, complicated matter.
It is.
That's hard to even describe to the public.
It is. So, one, what's the strategy? Once we come up with a really viable strategy that meets those criteria, protects private property rights, good for the citizens, produces a reliable water source for growth in the future. So
keeps costs down.
Costs down. All right, that's a fiscal responsibility piece. All right, we got that. Now, how do we sell it to the citizens? How do we actually get it out there? How do we get the citizens to understand this pretty complex issue?
Right.
And say yes. And I think that's another whole big effort, and we can't ignore either one of those.
That's right. No, that piece is really important.
And then I think the third piece, really important, is in this whole thing, we've got to also make sure we get the data so we can tell how much of this aquifer. I think the aquifer is totally underutilized, but we don't have the science right now
to prove it.
To prove that it's not going to cause subsidence in a way that's damaging to everything.
Right.
And so there's got to be more work there, but that's a separate issue. But we have to put all these people. It's a complex situation.
It really is.
It really is.
And Hank, this is where I think at one point all of us have mentioned the word transparency, and this is where being transparent and having input county-wide, not a select group from a select area. You need input like a wagon wheel with spokes. You need input, transparency, fresh conversation. I don't know how it's going to play out. The River Authority might, they might not like it, but they might wind up being nothing more than a vendor. We're just, hey, we're here to sell water. Y'all want to buy some water?
I think that should have been their role to start.
And there may be some form of new creation, committee, department, or something in the county, representative of the entire county, and they have a responsibility and transparency responsibility back to the voters to let them know what's going on. And
I think we do need a commission on
all
water.
of that can be can be talked through and worked through if everybody's willing to come to the table and reach across the aisle.
That's right.
If it's not, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
And interesting. There are good people in Montgomery County who are willing to put forth the effort, really, and be selfless about this and recognize the good to the bigger. I mean, none of us are. I don't think any of us are getting rich on our water fight, right? I mean, I can tell you that I ended up in this on this water board, which is a pretty not supposed to be a full-time job, and I can tell you I've worked pretty close to full-time the whole time, and I know Mayor Melder, when he was president, Harry, when he was president, did the same thing. And so our goal, if you don't have the right goal, and that is the goal to do the right thing, that's how these things go off the rails.
Exactly.
And I think that's what happened way back with. But we've got good legislators right now. I can tell you, Will Metcalf stuck his neck out. He started this ball rolling. He's the guy who Brandon Creighton has supported it. Mm-hmm. Cecil Bell, Steve Toth, Lois Colcourt stuck her neck out. Senator Perry, if you listen to the hearing, he started that hearing off pretty.
He was pretty stern.
And he and she stepped up and look, she was eloquent about it. I think she helped Senator Perry see that.
She was
I think so
and
too.
so,
she's really smart.
Yeah, she really is.
Yeah.
She did a really good. She really showed herself to the citizens of Montgomery County that she's with them. You never know about your legislators.
That's true.
Until you just got to watch what they do. Well, ours have really done a good job of showing who they are, and but I think we have a lot of other people in Montgomery County who are willing to step up and do this work too, and because this is important work. I'm gonna tell you, if we don't get the water problem solved in Montgomery County, I can tell you, given what we know about our DFC. And given what we know about growth, we watch that really closely. We're coming to a crossroads here.
Oh yeah.
And so getting this problem solved is not something that can wait 10 years.
Right.
This needs to be solved in the next 5 years.
It is as important as infrastructure.
It is.
For sure.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Probably more.
I don't think a lot of people realize that.
It is. I mean, look, at some point we're going to have to tell some subdivision coming in here who doesn't have access to surface water, you can't drill a well.
Well, that's happening in Magnolia right now. They've had a moratorium on subdivisions because they just don't have access
They don't
to
have the water.
Really?
And and the thing we have to understand too, we have kind of a myopic view right now on SJRA and the general manager.
Right.
But you need to understand, just to the south of us, Harris County is run by a subsidence district. They're run under different metrics. We have a pumping cap, right? As a groundwater district, we're under different metrics. They just have to control subsidence, eventually alleviate it at some point in time. They can they can pump as much water as they possibly can.
And they're pumping out of the same aquifer.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And so every gallon of water they can restrict from us goes to them.
They get to pump.
And we need to be continuously conscious of that. So anything that they can do to thwart us, restrict our access to that water, because water flows south, right, is more water for them. And so it is an ongoing issue. It's something that Jim and the Lone Star District is battling today. But we have to be very vigilant and conscientious that it ain't over. Getting one person out of this, it is a huge step, and it will address an issue. It's the snake that's closest to the boat right now, but there's a lot of snakes in the water, and there's a big anaconda that's slithering this way, and that could have some extremely negative consequences unnecessarily for all of us. And it's one of the things I used to say: it's going to be cheaper to fill up your gas tank than your bathtub soon. If that happens, right?
Well, and just to give you an idea, so, and I'll just say that out loud because it is as far as I'm concerned, it's a fact. Harris County, SJRA, Texas Water Development Board are beating the subsidence drum. It's the way to cut us back from using the aquifer.
Right.
Therefore, you now have a market for the surface water. Bigger market.
Force market.
You also allow, if we cut back, now Harris County gets to pump more and still meet their subsidence goals. And so...
And that's why we need the science.
We do. We need the science. Otherwise, we can't. It's hard to win this.
Right.
So I'll give you an example, Hank, of how insidious it is. There was a bill coming through the House and through the Senate that said, we want the Texas Water Development Board now to take over the process of the DFC. And they call it sustainability. So not water, no more water molecules out than go in. And so people can say anything they want. There's a huge argument about how much recharge there is and how important is recharge. So there's recharge by rain. There's recharge from underneath the ground. That water flowed. Right.
Right.
It's really difficult to nail down recharge. Just like Lone Star, in the beginning, was the hit man for this by capping the pumping at 64,000 because that's what they said the recharge rate was. That's been proven to be, there's no science behind that at all.
And I bet recharge rates vary by geology as well.
It does. So
you'd think it would.
Yeah. Well, how much of the Jasper over in Liberty County gravitates into Montgomery County?
Mm-hmm.
How much recharge over there and does gravitate?
Right.
So, look, we don't have good science to know all this stuff yet. We really don't. And so, but those kind of bills where you say, oh, we're going for sustainability. We're gonna make up some numbers and then we're gonna limit the amount of water you can pump. It's ridiculous, and we're fighting that all the way. And so, people like Harris Galveston and people like the Texas Water Development Board, they don't even. I'm not even sure they realize sometimes the bias they have. That.
Oh, they do.
Well, I think they do too. But I mean, they're beating this drum, and we're having to fight them.
Right.
And they're supposed to be, Harris County, go do your thing. Leave us alone.
So how do we create a commission on water for Montgomery County?
I really don't know that, Hank. But if somebody somewhere, the right people said we want some kind of a task force or something that figures this out,
yeah, and can take a look at all these different
we can
matters.
get that done. But you got to remember, this all started with a task force, right, Webbo?
Well,
Did it?
It did.
It started with a committee back in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Late 90s. I don't know. You'd have to go to SJRA files to see who was on that committee. It was run by Jim Adams at that time, the general manager of the River Authority. And one of the persons on that committee was Jim Stinson, former chairman of the Woodlands Water Authority. He made the motion to create a groundwater district, and Jim Adams seconded, and here we go, or vice versa. Either Jim made it, and
Okay.
one or the other. But
They wanted to subside its district first, and they were told no by the legislators here.
Okay.
so it morphed into the creation of a groundwater district. But getting back to this solving this problem in transparency, SJRA came marching from around the year 2001, holding hands with Lone Star, the two attorneys who were the main
Right.
drivers behind this thing. And they led everybody down this path, and they're going to save Montgomery County. We're running out of groundwater. They even went on public TV and made announcements, which is totally negative to our economic growth in this county. And then they get to the point of, well, when are you going to give us a contract to look at? When will we have something to review?
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that point, Hank, when they threw the contract down on our desk at the city of Conroe, and you go through the contract and you read down here, and number so-and-so says, forfeit our legal rights.
Right.
You can't sue us. Well,
Mm-hmm.
okay. I said it on your show at New Caney High School. I didn't know all this, what was going on, and I feel like we, people in this county, were lied to.
Mm-hmm.
But asking somebody to forfeit your legal rights, come on.
Well, and then the GRP was done under coercion anyway. I
Yeah,
think.
and that,
You know.
I knew right then, that's it.
Mhm.
And like I said, when you got a gun to your head,
Right. What do you do?
yeah, I told a former county judge here one time, you go out and get in your truck one night in the parking lot, guy sticks a gun to your head and said, give me your wallet. What are you going to do? He said, I'll probably give him my wallet.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, welcome to the GRP.
Same thing.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely. $10,000 a day speaks
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
loud.
Yeah.
The point I'm
You know.
making is, though, be careful with a commission, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be sure. We got to
Well,
be
yeah,
sure.
these things have to be put together
They
correctly.
have to be
Yeah.
put together correctly, because that all sounded good to everybody.
Mhm.
Montgomery County's running out of water.
Right.
Well, we're going to be out of water if you don't do something. Well, so people believe that, but it was being done for a whole. It wasn't because we were being run out of water. It's because they wanted to sell Lake Conroe.
Right.
Period. But and they wanted control. And so if you got the wrong people lead something, that you have what happened here.
Well,
No
then it would boil
accountability.
down to authority also.
It did.
So would this new committee have recommendation authority, or would they have statutory authority?
Yeah.
And that's what I think the voters would need to decide, or,
Well, I
or
think-
whoever
I
the
don't know.
legislators,
Well,
whoever would
hey,
create.
To me, the way to solve it is if you're going to spend money, the voters have to approve it. It
I'm
forces
there.
you to make sure you got your I's dotted, your T's crossed, and you got a good story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but the voters in Montgomery County are looking at a lot of things in the future,
they are.
because I think we're looking
are.
at a flood control district sometime in the future. It's another taxing authority.
Yep.
If we had a commission on water, that more than likely they'd need some funding, and we'd need, to get some money there. And it's got to come from somewhere. We can't just print it, unfortunately.
Right.
So
And Washington does
With
that.
growth comes complexity, period.
that's
And-
absolutely. But
and-
we've got to make the right moves, and
Yeah,
we've got to
yeah,
be
yeah.
smart.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Hank,
And we
one
can't
of-
just jump off the boat, and we got to think about what we're doing
Yep.
first.
I've thought about it for 15 years, and one of my biggest concern is if we're able to go forward, if we get a new general manager out at the River Authority, if we're able to bring people, qualified people, and I'm going to put an emphasis on qualified. I've seen far too many committees. People get put on a committee because they're a friend of so-and-so,
Oh, yeah.
or
Happens
They're-
every day.
they're going to run for office next year or what. This is a serious subject, and you need some qualified people who will bring something to the table
Mhm.
other than selfish opinions, selfish interests, and emotional knee jerks. This has got to be a study group. This is a science that we're talking about, and it's not. I mean, it's long term, and this is a very serious discussion.
Mhm.
And I just hope that if and when that opportunity ever presents itself, we get the right people there.
I do too. I think it's.
I hope so too. And it's fortunate that we do have great people in Montgomery County. And
We do.
I'm with Jim. I think we could pull together the right individuals and make it come together. At least on the front end. I think it'd be a little cumbersome to start out with, but we could work it out.
Yeah, we're gonna look. There's nobody has this answer. I've talked to a lot of people.
Mhm.
No one person has it, and we
No.
are going to stumble our way until we get to a place where we can see. I mean, Columbus, if you remember, was told the earth ends right out there, and he sailed out there and went, "Hey, wait a minute!
Yeah.
I can see land, and now I can see way out there." And he went a little further, and it kept doing it. And that's
Right.
the way these things usually roll out. Is you think that's the end? I mean, that looks like an end game right there. And you get out there closer to it, and you find out there's more to it than this. And so we don't know what we don't know, a lot of us, and no one person has all this knowledge.
Right.
But there's no doubt in my mind we could put a group of people together that we can figure this out.
Right. The only additional concern that I have,
Yeah.
just as a taxpayer, is
Yeah.
you take out the general manager
Yep.
of SJRA. Well, he's the devil you know.
Right.
What about the devil you don't?
Well, that's, yeah.
We've
Yeah.
thought about that too.
We have to.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: the devil we know, we have become convinced is the devil we can't deal with.
But there you go.
So there's a better than even chance that whatever we get
yeah.
is at least going to not be biased
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
the
we got to
point
be willing
that
to
this
roll
one
the
is.
dice on that one.
Yeah, and when you get to the point where you're willing to roll the dice, so I don't think any of the three of us are willy-nilly wanting to jump in out of a frying pan and into the fire.
Right.
So, but what we know now is what we believe, and I think a lot of other people do, or you would not have seen Representative Metcalf stick his neck out and do what he did, is that we know now that we can't move forward in the situation we're in. We believe that.
Yeah, and deadlock costs
And
a
we
fortune.
want to move forward.
Right.
Will Metcalf wants the best thing. Will Metcalf has been in this county since 1860. His family, Will Metcalf is dedicated to doing the right thing. He's a family man. Any dad that'll go buy 200 chickens while he's in session and spend every weekend with his kids at the fair, making sure those chickens. I don't know what they did with them, but 200 chickens is, for me, that'd make me run through a plate glass window. And
There you go.
so a guy like that who will stand up for that that's got to tell you that this anything we do is better than what we're doing now. We're in deadlock right now.
Yeah, it's
So.
too bad. Any closing remarks, gentlemen?
No, I appreciate being on the show and having the opportunity to talk about this issue.
Okay.
There is no shallow end in groundwater. It gets pretty deep pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
And, we've been talking a lot about it for a while. Thank you for your interest in it. And I think the best news is it shed the light on an issue that has been, it's been bubbling for a long time in Montgomery County.
Mm-hmm.
And last week really did shine the light from a lot of people to this thing. And I think at long last, we're going to get some relief.
There you go.
Yeah, Hank, let me, if I might,
Absolutely.
I would like to thank also our legislators one more time. And when you start mentioning names, you don't want to leave anybody out.
Mm-hmm.
But we know for a fact that Senator Creighton, Senator Colcars, Representative Bell, Representative Toth, Representative Metcalf, we were there, we've been in communication with them. They really stepped up for the people of Montgomery County. Now, I have not had an opportunity, and I don't know if these gentlemen have, to talk to Senator Betancourt. I don't know if anybody's talked to Representative Bales. They're new to Montgomery County,
Right.
and they've inherited this nightmare story. And they may just be there for support to let these leaders who have lived there, have dealt with Montgomery, they may be supporting them, which is fine. I don't know. But we're going to get through this. As far as how do we solve it, I like the Bible method, seek and ye shall find.
There you go.
We'll find a way to get it done, given the opportunity.
Sounds good.
Thank you for having us today.
You're very welcome, guys. And it was enlightening having you on. So it's always a good show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I just want to go ahead and challenge Representative Bells. He's been on my show, and he's a friend of mine.
Good man.
I want you, Mr. Bells, to take a look at what's going on. Give me a call. Let's talk about it. So I'd like to have you back on, and maybe we can see if we can push this thing a little bit further. With your help, we could definitely do it. So that's your challenge there, sir. And that may have been a little out of line, but I did it anyway.
So don't worry about being out of line.
There you go.
I want to say one last thing in closing. Also, I want to thank these gentlemen, and I want to thank a lot of other people, the Lone Star Board, all the private water owners, the City of Magnolia people, everybody. And Webb said it best. It's been a team effort.
Oh, yeah.
I
It's a
have
team
never
effort.
been involved in something where I've seen so many people give selflessly to try to solve an issue that's so complex, and the average person out there doesn't understand what's happening. And these people take it on and learn it and have pushed this forward. And I think it, once again, it speaks highly to the quality of people that we have in this county that are willing, love this county, love what we stand for, and want this county to be the best place to live in the whole of the United States. So
There you go. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. And so here's what I need you to do. We've got several videos on Montgomery County Water Wars. If you go back to the beginning, you can watch these videos and kind of figure out what this whole thing is about. And it's important, especially for the voters in this community, to understand what this situation is, what these problems are, how they came about, and what the possibilities are in resolving these. We need to continue to apply pressure. As long as we apply pressure as a cohesive unit, as a group, as a community, we can help these guys to move this thing to the next level. And that's what I want to do. So guys, as a challenge to the viewers here, just drop in a comment. Take a look at some of these videos. If you've got a question, let's ask a question. These guys are going to be monitoring, and they're going to watch it, and they'll answer your questions, and we can get this whole thing figured out. Remember, I said this in the very beginning of this video. This is your money. So it's not theirs, it's yours. You're the ones paying for this GRP thing. Take a look at your bill. If you got any questions about that, call me, let me know. Everybody knows how to get in touch with Hank. So I am Hank Vatt. This is Hank's Think Tank, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. And I will also drop a link to the legislative deal that they were at. And y'all take a look at that too. That was really a good show to watch. About 30 minutes, but it's well worth the watch. And you can see Senator Colcars with her idea. It was amazing. It was really good. And all right, guys, we'll catch you in the next one, and be around soon.